And with that, a new conservation area is created. The land is in the Yukon, but it's the Inuvialuit of the Northwest Territories who will manage it. The agreement covers 8,500 square kilometers of land and completes a conservation corridor in Alaska and the Yukon that protects the path of the porcupine caribou herd. Good evening, I'm Megan Roberts. The northeast coast of the Yukon is now under Inuvialuit stewardship. It's an agreement that crosses jurisdictions, and it took years of negotiating. The CBC's Des Loreen has more on what this all means for the Inuvialuit.
The area is now called Alaviet Angunarvik. It means where wildlife and people travel, a place to hunt in Inuvialuktun. The area is traditional hunting ground for Inuvialuit hunters from Aklavik. I spoke with William Storr. He's the president of the Aklavik Hunters and Trappers Committee. He also sat on the board that oversaw this project. He says the area is rich in wildlife and has been traditionally used by people from Alaska, Yukon, and the Aklavik region. He's very excited that the Inuvialuit are being recognized as the official stewards of the area. And as stewards, they have an important job ahead of them, protecting wildlife and habitat. The porcupine caribou herd call the area home, as well as muskox, moose, and both grizzly and polar bears.
It's been a long time coming.
The signing marks an agreement between the Inuvialuit, Yukon, and federal governments, and all of them are celebrating together. The community of Aklavik is welcoming them with a feast and drum dance this evening. A tour of the land in a local camp near Aklavik is happening tomorrow morning. Des Loreen, CBC News, Inuvik.
It's the fifth day of an evacuation order for Fort Good Hope. Residents are still waiting for word on when they can return home. This morning, NWT fire officials said the fire was moving away from the community toward a 2017 burn area. The fire at the edge of the community is now about 4,000 hectares in size, but no structures have burned as of the latest update. The CBC's Emma Tranter has the latest from Norman Wells.
Smoky.
What do you think?
It's been pretty scary too. Plus we have our mom is back at home trying to work on the fire, but she's gonna come back today to grab some more supplies.
Smoky is the word a lot of people have used to describe the last moments before they left Fort Good Hope. Chloe and Wilfred Dixon, along with more than 200 people from Fort Good Hope, have been in Norman Wells since the evacuation order was issued Saturday. They've also been busy helping out, folding T-shirts to be handed out to evacuees, and doing their part to help each other through a difficult situation, something their dad, Paul Dixon, says has been nice to see.
People have tons of family all over the place, and it's very much that response. It's a greater community effort with lots of cousins and, brothers or whoever that are working here or elsewhere. And yeah, so I mean, it's been very, very supportive.
They aren't the only ones pitching in. Norman Wells residents have donated clothing for evacuees, along with preparing meals every day for over 200 people. Volunteers have also set up a makeshift free clothing store, open at the curling rink each day. Cameron Boniface says that help doesn't go unnoticed.
They've been really great to us, actually. I mean, we have a lot of donated clothing and all stuff. Most of the residents didn't really have time to pack or get organized with their families or anything. We kind of just up and left.
Despite how well people are being cared for, it's cramped here. People are staying on cots and they'd rather be staying here in a hotel. That could change soon. There is a flight headed to Delaney today with 20 evacuees on board. That could free up space here in the hotel for more people to stay as they wait to return home with no end in sight yet to this evacuation. Emma Tranter, CBC News, Norman Wells.
Last year's wildfire burn sites in the Northwest Territories are this year's Morel hunting grounds. There are tons of the prized mushrooms popping up near Fort Smith. Surprisingly, though, commercial harvesters are nowhere to be seen, so local pickers are taking advantage. They're frantically gathering what they can during the short growing season.
The last time we seen one here was about 40 years ago. That was the big fire in 79, 80, 81 that went through here, and we haven't had a fire in here since then. to see the morel mushrooms, because you hear everybody saying it's the second year after the fire has gone through that you see the morels coming out. And I find it very strange that this fire went through last year and it's already, it's already here. Like the morel mushrooms are all over the place.
Bolio figures she's harvested enough morels to get her through the winter and says it's important to think about food security. She's encouraging locals to get out and harvest while they can, but reminds people to be respectful of the land and others. A stifling heat dome remains settled over central and eastern Canada, with heat warnings in effect from Ontario all the way to Newfoundland. A ridge of high pressure stalled over eastern North America is the reason for the exceptionally hot and humid weather. Many are enjoying the first blast of summer heat, but as Kayla Hounsel reports, officials are warning that it could be very dangerous.
For many, it is a welcome early burst of summer.
So amazing. I love it.
But experts are warning the heat dome currently sitting over 6 Canadian provinces is cause for concern.
These types of events can have very severe impacts on health, illness, and death.
There you go. At this tent encampment, a much-needed water delivery.
I feel sick. I feel like I'm having a heat stroke.
There have already been widespread temperatures above 30 degrees and a humidex value above 40. And that hot, humid weather is expected to stay in most of Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada until Friday, without even a break at night.
All that moisture during the day makes it hard for the temperature to drop off at night, and to see any real reprieve.
Toronto is dealing with transit delays because heat can cause train tracks to soften and expand, causing delays. Montreal is approaching its all-time record for June, 35 degrees back in 1964.
I'm not putting a lot of clothes on so he can sleep. And for me, just gonna be in the shade as much as possible.
Environment Canada says such a heat wave has rarely been seen this early in June.
I worry for my grandchildren. What is their world going to be like?
In Halifax, these construction workers are calling it a day.
It's too hot to continue. With the humidex, it's 52 right here.
In Fredericton, this cafe owner is also closing early.
The temperature is excruciating. It is really, really hot in our kitchen. So we're going to have a nice staff beach day.
Officials say finding ways to cool off is the right idea, and they say the effect of heat is often cumulative, warning for some it will stick around until Sunday. Kayla Hounsel, CBC News, Halifax.
About 7,000 liters of fuel has spilled into the ocean near Pond Inlet, Nunavut. The Department of Community and Government Services says the leak was discovered on June 11th. The cause was identified as a ruptured connection in the pipeline. It's now been capped for repairs, and an environmental consultant is preparing a remediation plan. The Nunavut government is urging residents to avoid the tank farm area and keep their pets away from there as well. The Department of Environment wants residents to contact them if they see any sheening near the shoreline in the coming weeks. Scientists are planning to drill holes into a riverbed near the community of Saluit in northern Quebec. They want to see if the talix underneath can be used as a sustainable source of water. Talix are pockets below rivers which contain flowing groundwater even as the river above freezes. Previous studies by Quebec institutions have identified possible talix under the Cook River near Saluit. Nicolas Benoit and a team of researchers from Natural Resources Canada want to install wells along the riverbed. They'll take samples over 2 years to see if there's enough good quality water and sufficient amounts of it to be a viable source for the community.
I think it's important for the North to secure drinking water, quantity and quality. And I think that kind of project will generate positive economic or social impact by providing talc as a source of sustainable drinking water.
The study is pending final approval. Benoit says there are many talix in lakes across northern Canada, but river talix are less common. though there are possibilities for others, like in Iqaluit's Sylvia Grinnell Territorial Park. Families from Nunavut and Nunavik whose loved ones died while getting treated for tuberculosis are getting closure this week in Quebec City. They're visiting the places where Inuit were taken during the TB epidemic of the 1950s and 60s, including the port, the sanatorium, and the site of unmarked graves. Youth, escorts, counselors, and 60 elders are all part of the delegation. It's meant to be a healing journey. It's called Nanilavut, and it was all organized by Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated and the Makivik Corporation. The CBC's Teresa Hayachuk is in Quebec for the trip. She joins us now with more. Teresa?
Thank you, Megan. Yes, I'm here in Quebec City at La Citadelle. Nunavut delegates arrived late yesterday evening, and today delegates from Nunavik, Quebec City arrived later in the afternoon. However, this morning, delegates and representatives from Nunavut had an information session to prepare them for the upcoming days. Tuberculosis spread through Inuit communities dating back to the early 1950s. Many Inuit affected by the disease during the epidemic were sent south. They're here this week to share information and tell stories to ensure that people across Canada know what happened to Inuit while they were south for treatment. Some of these Inuit that were here for treatment did not make it home, and some of their families did not know that they had even died, nor where their bodies were buried. Megan.
Teresa, this is the second Nanilavut gathering. Last year, Inuit groups met in Hamilton, Ontario. What's different this year?
Well, Megan, last year NTI did, as you just mentioned, went to Hamilton, but this time it's different because Makivik Corporation from Nunavik, northern Quebec, was conducting their own search, searching for missing graves. And when they did, they found graves from Nunavik, but they also found graves of people who are originally also from Nunavut. So this was the perfect opportunity for the two Inuit organizations to work together and bring elders here as part of this healing journey.
And what's planned for the days ahead?
So tomorrow morning, the two delegates will officially be together, and they'll have a tour of the, again, now closed Old Sanatorium Park Savard, as well as the dock that the Inuit would have gotten off the ship from CD Howe. They'll also have an unveiling in the coming days, and towards the end there will be a private ceremony for the close relatives of the graves that were found here. The public and the media will not be invited to this private ceremony, and as well as the healing circles. Megan, there will also be a closing ceremony.
Thank you, Teresa. That's the CBC's Teresa Hayachuk reporting from Quebec City tonight. The search for a missing man from Kanaksujuak following a snowmobile accident has been called off. The 41-year-old man went missing on June 9th. It's believed he plunged through a crack in the ice while riding a snowmobile roughly 25 kilometers south of the village. Nunavik police say the man's body may have drifted far beyond the search area, so the community has paused the search. The body of a 31-year-old woman was also found near the site of the accident.
You promised me that you won't look back. There's gonna come a time you'll feel the darkness. You don't let them win.
How does someone just disappear? How can I be in love with something that was never there?
We are not a dying people. We are here and we are speaking.
I had a vision that I one day would be free again.
It is my right, it is my privilege, and it is my heritage.
When we see Team Canada on the world stage, we're witnessing pure greatness. What we don't see is their struggle. We don't see Maggie McNeil navigating her anxiety, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander getting cut from his high school team, or Ellie Black hearing she's just too old to compete. What we don't see makes us who we are. We're all bravely facing the odds in our lives, and our bravery is our victory.
Who's this then?
Inspector George Crabtree.
We'll just be needing one more thing.
Well, this is delightful.
So, you want to watch CBC News Explore, a new kind of news channel. Here's how to find us. We're on the CBC News app, on CBC Gem, and on your smart TV. Stream anytime. It's always free. CBC News Explore.
Sipping on a bit of Henny. Can I get a little Remy? Feeling heavy. Chilling, but I'm feeling ready. Pulled up in a big old Chevy. Dance floor stops and Miguel them drops. Queen with the locks and the crown on top. Feet in a box, never sound on pots. If it ain't the Henny, give me crown on rocks. Ah!
A popular homegrown coffee shop in downtown Yellowknife has new owners. Birchwood Coffee Co. now belongs to Barren Ground Coffee. Rowan Fleury has the story.
It's nestled downtown, and there's always a steady stream of loyal customers. With bannock breakfast, muffins, and hot coffee, Birchwood Coffee Co. has become a special place to many people here. And all thanks to owner Jawa Scott, who poured her heart and soul into this family business.
I think the real day that'll hit me will when I'm handing over the keys. And like, you know, I can't just walk into this space like I own it anymore. But yeah, I have an emotional roller coaster, I think, most days, especially coming up to like the closing date of us like operating.
Scott has owned and operated Birchwood for 8 years. She took pride in knowing people in the neighborhood to call this place home.
I feel like I've made something in Yellowknife. A lot of people have told me that they really love the space that I've made for them and the environment I've made for them, so I'm excited that they still get to use this space.
And so is Eric Binion. He owns Barren Ground Coffee, another popular Yellowknife business. And now he owns Birchwood. Binion says customers shouldn't expect any big changes.
So we're going to move over a bunch of people over next week. Some of them are staff we've retained at Birchwood, but some are staff that we've had for 4 or 5 years working here. So we'll be able to keep up with the quality.
Binion plans on offering some of the same dishes from the Birchwood menu, and it will operate under the same Birchwood Coffee Co. name. Rowan Fleury, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Canada's second largest airline is cancelling flights and parking planes in anticipation of a strike. WestJet says it'll cancel 40 flights by the end of today, affecting about 6,500 passengers. WestJet's maintenance engineers and other technical workers have issued a 72-hour strike notice. They can walk off the job Thursday evening. The two sides have been trying to reach their first collective agreement since November. The company has asked the federal government to appoint an arbitrator. There is growing fee frustration among Canadian air travelers. The airlines say they're cutting fares, but also adding charges. And in many cases, those charges are for services that used to be free. The federal government says it's going to take action, but that hasn't gotten off the ground yet. Sophia Harris has more.
Thanks for calling WestJet.
Jana Fadovic was shocked when she called WestJet to book a family trip to Phoenix and learned she must now pay to book flights by phone.
For econo fares, there will be a $25 fee plus taxes.
I just feel like it's just a money grab.
Airline fees aren't new, but some major carriers are now charging for features previously included.
It's just pricing people out of being able to fly.
Air Canada also recently fielded customer complaints after introducing a fee for economy seat selection at check-in. And that's not all.
Oh yeah, no carry-on luggage, no carry-on bag.
WestJet came under fire on social media this month after revealing new details of its lowest fare, now called Ultra Basic. Customers must pay extra for overhead carry-on, and if they don't pay a fee for seat selection, they'll be seated at the back of the plane.
So what do you think of Ultra Basic? It's like they're trying to punish people for wanting to pay less. It's like, fine, you think you can pay the least amount for a ticket? Well, we'll show you.
Air Canada and WestJet told CBC News service charges benefit passengers because they only have to pay for the features they want. Even so, Ottawa has pledged to make airline fees more transparent, but it has no action plan as of yet.
Transparency is something that is a good thing.
This consumer advocate says airlines should display optional fees alongside the ticket price.
It would be much easier for consumers to have a full idea of what they're paying and be able to compare prices.
However, more transparency won't bring an end to airline fees.
We don't need to pay for customer service. Customer service should be provided.
Determined not to pay WestJet's phone charge, Fadovic booked her tickets online, reluctantly. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
Iqaluit's first police officer dedicated to Inuit communities is set to begin this fall. It's part of the federal First Nations and Inuit policing program. Nunavut's Department of Justice says it has funding for 15 positions across the territory. One officer will be stationed in Iqaluit. They'll be focused on community policing initiatives such as public intoxication and public safety. It's up to the Nunavut RCMP to fill those positions, with priority given to Inuit RCMP officers. The agreements for the other 14 positions outside of Iqaluit are yet to be finalized. The Ukutak Society is one step closer to creating an affordable housing building. That building would be located in the city's downtown core. Last night, an Iqaluit City Committee voted to recommend Council approve a development permit for the building. It would have 27 single rooms, each with a bathroom, and the facility would have a shared kitchen space. It's meant to help people living in the Ukutak Society's homeless shelter move out and have their own independent place to stay.
The only reason that they're there is because there's nowhere else to go. They're quite capable of paying their rent and managing their own space, but there isn't anything that they can afford.
McCorston says it would also help young people who want to leave home but can't afford rent for a one-bedroom apartment, as well as newcomers to the city who need a place to stay. She says the organization is looking at charging between $1,300 and $1,800 per room. If council approval is given for the permit, the project would need to go through the permitting process before construction can begin. The Nunavut Department of Family Services is looking for feedback on its family wellness strategic plan. 6 communities across all 3 regions will host public engagement sessions throughout June and July. The consultations come after the Federal Auditor General released a report last year. It called for changes to how child protection services are delivered and found gaps in how the department develops and carries out plans for children in care. Nunavut Family Services Minister Margaret Nakashuk says they want to hear about what issues are prominent in Nunavut communities.
As we stated in the Auditor General report, there was a lot of issues with service programs or services within the department they want to see improve. Those are things that we want to hear more of from adult community level. So that's why it's very important to combine all the information and write all the information down at the end to ensure that we do have a plan in place to improve the programs and services.
Nunavummiut who can't attend a session can submit their comments at their community's Government Liaison Office and Family Wellness Office or online at the GN website. So-called dumb phones are now having a moment. The retro mobile devices lack the bells and whistles of a smartphone. They perform basic functions like calling and texting, but they can't connect to the internet. As Nisha Patel shows us, they're becoming more popular with younger people looking for less distraction.
She's got her school schedule.
When Lee Tynan agreed to get her 13-year-old daughter a cell phone, she didn't want it to become a distraction.
When there's a smartphone or a screen, you don't practice guitar, you don't read a book, you don't just be bored. Hello?
She spent about $80 on a flip phone. It allows talk and text, but no social media.
And then I just thought I really don't feel comfortable with her being online all the time.
known as dumb phones, simple phones, or even boring phones. These basic models seem to be making a comeback. Sales in Canada grew by 25% in 2023 compared to the year before.
The smartphone is not a source of enjoyment anymore. It used to be fun, but now they're addicted to it. So they want to go back to simpler times, using a simpler device.
The company that makes Nokia phones has relaunched a model from 20 years ago.
It's really interesting to see like a phone that many thought was done with, like we would never use this phone again, and now it's being picked up.
We're humans who are taking back our lives.
The Lite phone is also trying to cash in on the demand. Its version has a more modern design, a black and white screen, and no connection to the internet. The company is in talks with TELUS and hopes to bring the phone to Canada later this year. Though iPhone and Android devices still make up the overwhelming majority of new phone sales in North America.
Right now I'm using the F22.
Kristen Campbell has made the switch.
I just felt a lot calmer and a lot happier, and I just get to like live my life in the place where I am at that moment rather than constantly being mentally like elsewhere.
For her, getting a dumb phone was the smart move. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Some young at heart seniors are busting a move in a new dance group in Tokyo. The breakdancing club is the only one in Japan made up entirely of elderly citizens. It was formed to encourage seniors to stay young through exercise. A 38-year-old former breakdancing champ coaches the group in practices, performances, and competitions. And the dancers say they're inspired by the debut of breakdancing at the Paris Olympic Games next month. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
Are you ready to be entertained?
Stand-up comedy best comedians from across the globe.
Oh, great.
An incredible lineup.
Canada.
Are you ready? Oh. Are you kidding me?
CBC's got the best in stand-up comedy.
That's pretty unbelievable, man.
It's a scam. It's a scam.
No f***ing way.
Ooh.
It's a bit spicy. It'll change your life.
Catch it all free on CBC Gem.
Well done.
Y'all give it up. Give it up.